Hello and welcome to this podcast, Don't Panic, the Hitchhiker's Guide to TOLATA Applications. My name is Mandy Tanner. I'm a barrister at 14 Chambers and I specialise mostly in financial remedy on divorce, but I also do a lot of TOLATA work.
I am Jonathan Chu, a barrister at Wilberforce Chambers. I do a range of commercial chancery work, but particularly a lot of property work. And so we are here to understand the galaxy of TOLATA applications and what to do when you find yourself in it.
Oh, he's already started with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy jokes. So the theming that we've gone down the route of for this podcast is due to the fact that so often people, and particularly family lawyers, when faced with TOLATA applications, can find it rather intimidating. And the reason we've looked at it from this perspective is to try and demonstrate that actually TOLATA applications are incredibly straightforward. And for the family lawyers listening to this, in fact, in my view, they're often much more straightforward than financial remedy applications because the rules are far more straightforward and clear cut. So what are we going to look at today? We are going to be focused quite heavily on the procedure, but we are going to look at the substance of TOLATA applications and how you approach them. Most of the tricky stuff I've kicked off to Jonathan to have to deal with because he's probably far better at explaining things like Part 36 than I am, which is certainly the one that fills us all with dread when we see it. I'm going to start out by explaining how to kick off a claim. I'm then going to look at how we deal with sole name versus joint name cases, which is the substance of TOLATA. I'm then going to hand over to Jonathan, who's going to look at ADR and the horror of Part 36.
It's not a horror, you'll be fine.
It's not a horror. We're going to have a quick sidebar into the other sorts of applications that you may want to look at pleading in the first instance. And then finally, Jonathan's going to finish off by looking at costs. So without further ado, we start. Know where your towel is. Know how to begin dealing with these sorts of applications. Now, the primary difference between these sorts of applications and financial remedy applications or family applications is that you have to kick things off with a pre-action letter. And what that means is you have to write to the other side and set out your stall in its entirety. If you don't do that, it can severely impact on your ability to claim costs at the end of proceedings, and so it is a step that is not to be missed. Many civil claims have specific pre-action protocols. TOLATA does not have a specific pre-action protocol, so you're just looking at the general one. And what you do is you write a letter which sets out the background, all of the points that you would expect to rely on that you would plead in a particulars of claim or witness statement if you're in Part 8 proceedings. You will look at the legal principles that will apply in this case, so we will come on to those, but it's going to be based around Section 14 of the Trusts of Land Act, which is the one we are looking at. You need to identify any documents you tend to rely on. That tends to be the TR1, any office copy, bank statements demonstrating contributions, any valuations of property, documents of that nature which we're all used to seeing. That letter then needs to go to every defendant, and the defendants have 14 days to acknowledge receipt of it, and then they should respond within 30 days. If you are, as claimant, asked for any documents, reasonably requested documents, you should provide them. And it may be that you're on the face of a counterclaim, but not necessarily. In these sorts of applications, you tend to find that it all runs smoothly as being an argument about one property.
Can I just chip in there on documents? Identifying the relevant documents on which you rely, whether you're for the claimant or the defendant in this pre-action, has been good practice on pre-action protocol basis for quite a long time, and it's something the courts are getting even keener on. If you end up in high court litigation here, there is at the moment a pilot on disclosure, which is in the Natalie Name Practice Direction 51U. But that requires the parties now to give what's called initial disclosure, and then you go on to give what's called extended disclosure later, rather than there being no obligation to give anything at the start and then standard disclosure, etc. later. So there's a real move towards this cards on the table litigation and providing key documents up front early. So that, again, that practice direction is a trap for the unwary.